Well, hello and welcome to episode 86 on the Air Hug Community Podcast. Hello there and welcome or welcome back. If you are new here, this is the Air Hug Community Podcast and I am your host, Judy Arizosa. I am a midlife lady who is someone who loves to share stories from myself and special guests that reflect on just how midlife really goes, not how we think it should go. We talk about the good, the bad, the messy, the ugly, the wonderful, all the emotions. And this is a place where we actually can grow from our experiences. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Well, hello there. First of all, I have laryngitis, so it's going to sound kind of like what you hear right now. But anyways, we have a pretty interesting guest today, and I wasn't really sure what to expect because actually she reached out to me through a third party to do an interview, and she's a conscious parenting coach. And I thought, geez, I don't know, we're not really about potty training and learning our ABCs around here. We're kind of past that point in our lives. But I went ahead and looked at her website and I thought, oh, wait a minute. This is actually not really at all what she's talking about. And it was quite unexpected and very introspective. And so I'm very excited to bring her on today. So have a listen and sit back and relax. I think you're going to get a lot out of this. Oh, but one more thing. I just want to let you know, this is kind of funny, and I knew we were going to get along when this happened. Nina has 2 dogs, and I have 2 dogs, and we both had our dogs in the room. So there could be a point at some point during the conversation where you either hear her dogs in Sydney, Australia, or my dogs in Western New York. And that's just how life goes. So, all right, let's get on with it. Hello, everybody. Today we have a guest I'm very excited about because we're going to talk about a topic that for me is very near and dear to my heart, and it's family dynamics. But let me tell you a little bit about our guest, and then we're going to let her tell you a little bit more about what she does. And I have a few questions. So Nina Cruz is a certified conscious parent coach, a social worker, and a meditation teacher who's made it her mission to support parents through shifting archaic parental paradigms, and many of which contribute to increased stress, anxiety, overwhelm, and feelings of disconnection for themselves, their partners, and their children. Her approach to coaching revolves around trauma-informed care that puts others at ease, providing a safe space for everyone to facilitate their individual healing and growth. Wow. Okay, there's so many things I could ask you, but Nina, hop on, tell us a little bit about yourself and then a little bit more, and then I'll just interject with some questions.
Great. Hi, Judy. Thank you so much for having me here.
You're welcome.
Nina. I'm Nina, and I'm a mom. I live in Sydney. I have 2 children, 8 and just turned 11. And I am a conscious parent coach. And, the beauty about conscious parent coaching is you don't even have to have a child for me to coach you. So conscious parent coaching, the prerequisite is you have to have a parent. You have to have had a parent or a caregiver or a foster mom or whatever. Really, makes no difference because the coaching is all about you. So it really shifts the focus on anything on the outside of you. So that's, yeah.
What exactly is conscious parenting? So you just totally blew my mind because it's not what I thought. Not what I thought I was going to hear.
Yeah, obviously, I do support parents to support their own journey as they're parenting their children or their child. But conscious parenting is a new way of parenting. It flips the mainstream model of parenting on its head. So parents and children are on the same level. There's no hierarchical, like I'm greater than, you're lesser than, and we're all learning and growing together. So it's such a beautiful way to parent, because it takes the onus off the parent, and it really shows the parent that my child is teaching me. What is my child showing me? And my child or your child is mirroring to you the places where you need to go to heal, to let go, to grow, to be more patient. There's so many things that our children show us. But apart from that, if you don't have children, or even if they're in their 20s, 30s, you can still grow and learn from your experience as a parent, and still the same dynamics are going on, probably from childhood with your child, or even with your partner. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful process, a beautiful way of that I coach clients, parents, non-parents, to really look in the mirror and become responsible for their life and create their life.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I had all sorts of little thoughts going through my head when you said that, about learning from our kids and thinking back. At the same time, I was thinking about being a child and answering to my parents, and also being a parent, and just all sorts of little thoughts. I know that when we talked a little bit before, and you talked about something called toxic generational patterns. And since what you're doing is traditional, and you speak a little bit about breaking up with those patterns, can you tell us what they are and why we need to break up with them?
Yeah. Well, when we're a child, we're basically programmed between the ages of 0 and 7. Our parents have programmed us. We've learned patterns, we've learned behaviors, we've learned habits, paradigms, which are like habitual behaviors that we do without consciously being aware of what we're doing.
Mhm.
And they kind of get passed down from generation to generation through the pipeline. And so, yeah, basically we become a product of our environment, of our DNA, of our environment, of what we've experienced as a child. So a lot of, so there's some great patterns that could be your parents could have showed you how to be independent and how to be strong. But then there are other patterns that we could be living that, that I'm not good enough, or that I'm not lovable, or I can't do it. These limiting beliefs, these limiting patterns that hold us back in life. And until we shine a spotlight on them and become aware of them, we're just playing out the same kind of patterns from childhood into each relationship, into our work, into our parenting life, until we become aware. And awareness is basically or consciousness is basically awareness, becoming aware of why I do what I do, what's going on for me inside. Because this is a big, the work I do is really looking at what's really going on inside, because we get triggered in life by things, by people, by experiences. And the trigger is like an opening for us to look at and learn from it and understand what's really going on for me, because what's going on in the outside has really nothing to do with you. It's what's going on the inside. So, but everybody has different experiences. That's why it's really personable to how you've experienced life, or how you've had to cope with life. What coping mechanisms have you had to put in place to feel safe or to feel loved in childhood? And this is where they just get transferred. That's why you can change partners, change jobs, and the same stuff can happen where you go, because that's where you are. It's in you. It's not out there.
Yeah. So what about when two parents are co-parenting, right? A couple, and they come from different, let's say their generational patterns are different, which I would imagine is pretty common, right? So how does that work out, and how does that play in?
Well, you could have one parent that's very authoritative, disciplinary, strict, and you have one that wants to go with the flow, and this happens without children. We are opposites do attract, so there's a polarization that goes on. But what you'll find is there could be a disconnect there's a challenge to connect maybe with the child or in the relationship after time, because we all see the world differently. We see the world through the lens of how we are, not how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And, the same two people could be looking at an incident with the child, and one's fine with it, and one's like, that needs punishment. So, what generally happens is, parents or partners hit some kind of crisis point. More often than not, it's a hit a crisis point, unless somebody's just, hit midlife and gone, okay, is there more to life? There's something, they awaken to something inside of them. It's really dealing with becoming aware of actually what's going on, because as I said, that it's never about what's going on outside. It's something that's inside, that's already been there, that's something like a present, and it's just been scratched, it's just been triggered. So parents need to do a bit of a deep dive into what's going on inside, because as I said, we're programmed, and these programs and these patterns are playing out unconsciously. We're always, we're creating our life no matter what, whether we're aware or not, whether we're conscious to it or not. We are the co-creators of our own life experience. And generally people will come to me when, something's wrong or something's going on, or they feel disconnected from their child, something doesn't feel okay, and they want to explore really what's going on, or often there's something behavior going on with the child, or they're having issues at work or with a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bring it back to what's going on for them, because we can only change ourselves. But the beautiful thing is, once we change ourselves, the whole dynamic of the family changes, your partner changes, and your external is mirrored from what's going on inside you. So your inner world gets mirrored on the outside.
Your inner world gets mirrored on the outside. It's fascinating, but it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
And I love how we see things as we see them, not how they are.
Exactly. And we're not taught this stuff in school. We're not taught about energy. We're not taught about vibrations, how we live in a world of vibrations, and how we're emitting messages all the time. What we put out, we get back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating once you start to become aware of what you're actually thinking, what you're feeling, what actions you're taking, where are you taking your actions from? Because there's this looping that goes on, the thinking, feeling, action loop. And we stay in the same status quo. And that's why we get stuck and we go, why is nothing changing? Nothing, because we're in these loops, these patterns, and we need to literally deconstruct and dismantle and disrupt the looping if we're going to want to see change in it. And it can be hard because we're going against that program. We're going against the subconscious programming.
What we've been taught. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
The patterns that we've lived. So you talked about, give me those three things again: the thinking,
the feeling, and the action.
Thinking,
action,
feeling,
reaction. Yeah. So a lot of time parents get into it, and people, anybody, we get into that reactive loop. We react to life. We're a victim to life. This is not fair. We blame, we shame.
Oh, yeah.
We project our stuff onto our children, onto our partner, onto our workplace, onto our colleagues. We're projecting our stuff onto them. And the whole premise of a lot of this work is to take responsibility for you, and the projection, you become aware of where you're projecting, and you stop it. You really pull back your energy, and you start to become responsible for your life and the impact you have. And then that's where the creation piece comes in, where you start to create, not just live at default. Because when you're a victim and when you're blaming, you're at the effect of life, and you become, and in this work, you at cause to the effect. So there's a universal law called the law of cause and effect. It's constantly going on. So you become at cause, which means you take action and you create instead of being at the effect of life.
So I find that really interesting, and we can control what we do, but what about what others do? We really can't control that.
No, you can't, but you can influence. You can definitely influence your children. And because of what you're putting out and how you shift, your environment, your external world will shift in different ways. Sometimes you may need to hold a boundary with certain people, but you become responsible for your time, for your energy, and for what you're thinking and feeling and behaving, how you're acting, what actions you take. And yeah, that certainly doesn't mean life is always rosy and happy. Life, we live in a world of duality, so you're always going to have good, bad, right, wrong, up, down. There's always going to be those two polar opposites. But
and
you
everything
really,
in between, right?
exactly. And you start to really see life through a new lens, not through a trauma lens or through your childhood lens. You start to create how you want to see life and experience life. So it's very different. And then also, ignorance is bliss. You can't you can't go and blame anyone. It's something about you, what's going on. And that's not to say that you can't hold a boundary and you can't put in place those parameters, because that's the boundaries are self-love, they're self-caring, they're looking after you and saying, no, that's not okay for me. And with your children as well, when they're not talking to you nicely or so there's lots of layers, but it certainly supports you to become a full creator in your life and start to move your life towards what you really want to create, not being at the effect of just because life happens.
Right, instead of just reacting. And I love what you said about how boundaries are part of self-love. And being able to, no matter who you set them with, correct?
Exactly. And the boundaries are about you. They're about holding that space and that boundary around you. And they're teaching people how to treat you as well. So
yeah, what you actually will allow. Can we talk a little bit about vibrations?
Sure. Yes. I love talking all of universal laws and because we have. Yeah.
No, go ahead, please.
Oh, we have these universal laws, that are not man-made, woman-made, and they're going on just like, the law of gravity, and we have the law of vibration and the law of attraction, the law of manifestation, the law of cause and effect, and the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. And they're all going on without, whether we're aware or not. And we can really harness these laws and use them to support us. And the law of vibration is actually a primary law. There's a lot of talk about the law of manifestation and what was the other one? The law of manifestation. So there's always there's a lot of talk about manifestation, but actually it's your vibration that's actually manifesting what you want. Basically, I usually draw a diagram about this, but anyway, we can't today. But basically, where our programs live in our subconscious mind, our paradigms, what we habitually do. We wake up in the morning, we have routines without thinking. We drive the car, we hardly are aware we're driving a car and where we're going. We're just on like autopilot.
Correct.
So our programs live in our subconscious mind, and what is causing our results in our life is through our subconscious mind. That's triggering the law of vibration and the law of manifestation. So when we want to start to shift our life, we need to start to become aware of these automated programs. And that's where we start to shift and become aware and change. And that's when we start to shift our vibration, because if we're going for a goal, or we want to create a happier, more harmonious family, or we want to find a partner, and we're on one level of thinking, and which is our paradigm, where we're like, oh, we're not good enough, we can't do it, I'll never find love, my kids never listen to me. We're on this lower vibration of this paradigm, which is stuck in our subconscious mind, and we want to go up here to finding an amazing partner, or having, feeling connected, and my kids feel connected to me. We can't get to up there from the same thinking, feeling, and actions from down here. So we need to start to think, feel, and act what a person would like when they have the amazing partner. We need to be that incredible partner for ourselves, self-love, self-care, to start to shift up to the higher vibration and start to vibrate and create and manifest that partner. Otherwise, we're going to find the same kind of partners that are like, you know, that don't love us, because our paradigm or our program is I'm unlovable. And so, of course, we're going to attract somebody who's not available and we don't feel loved. So, and same with our children. If we want to get more connected, we need to be more connected to ourselves first. Mm-hmm. We need to feel us, look after ourselves, love on ourselves, and think, feel, and act like the parent that is connected, that has our kids back, that doesn't complain and nag about every little thing, and mm-hmm. These are habits, nagging. I find in parenting, and more so as my children get a little older, that if I want them to do something, because you see, conscious parenting, we don't have punishments. Mm-hmm. So you've got to get creative. And, if I want them to do something and, they're resisting, what I'm finding is the more I get playful, the more I get creative, the more they do what as I ask, without me even enforcing, without me yelling, telling them, nagging. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. It is literally magic. Getting more playful, and that's in life as well. Like we being more playful and more in flow, and there's always talk about getting in flow. And when you're more playful and more available in the moment, you're going to get some more creative thoughts. You're going to get like intuitive hits, and that's really your soul, your spirit guiding you to where your next best step is.
Mm-hmm. I am really encouraged by that, because I feel like it's another interpretation of, if you think you're worthy, you are, and you will attract maybe a more worthy mate, or maybe just a more worthy situation. If you think you deserve it, you do.
Yes. And so the work still, because the belief might be I'm not worthy underneath.
Yeah. So
the work still to be done to look at that, and depending on whether someone's had quite a lot of trauma, that there is inner work to do. But the more you start to, because our subconscious mind can be reprogrammed through repetition. So the more you start to think, feel, and act worthy, the less this program will run the show. And then eventually it sort of flips over. And then you start to feel more worthy. And you're like, hang on, I didn't believe it before, but now I'm starting to think maybe I am worthy. And it's a process of kind of reprogramming your subconscious mind. And I actually do a 6-month program where you're really doing reprogramming the subconscious mind to start to plug in what you want, not be at default at the program that was set, because we all have a set point as well. And that's why you'll find, in your life, I'll talk about weight. Women want to always lose weight. And so, we lose weight, we feel great, we get compliments. Yeah, this is great. But then we come back to the set point and we put the weight back on. And this set point is where our program is at, because, we're set, maybe we can't have what we really want, or, and this is it's a
belief more than a metabolism thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a book written in, I think it was the 70s, or maybe it was earlier, called Psycho-Cybernetics, and this talks about this set point that we have in our psychology, that we go back to. We find the great partner, it's all good, and then we get back to they're leaving us because we have abandonment issues, and we have a set point that takes us back to that point that we've been programmed at, that we believe that we can't have the money, we can't have the partner, we can't have it all.
So when someone is changing their vibration, is that another way of saying they're raising their set point?
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't, the same problems,
Mhm.
the same challenges, the same thought patterns at the lower level can't happen when you're happy. You can't be sad. You
Yeah.
can't be in love, and love and fear. You can't feel fear when you're feeling love. So
Mhm.
yeah, definitely you
Yeah.
can raise your level of vibration, and then yeah, but this set point pulls you down back to whether you think you're worthy, unworthy, or what you deserve. Or so yeah, it's really, that is a lot of work around the self-image and self-belief.
Mhm.
So looking at your self-image, because we have a self-image that we give to ourselves and we give to the world, and often there's a discrepancy between them. We put out some kind of self-image, but then we're saying our inner critic is saying nasty things to us all the time, and when we're not good enough, and you're not beautiful enough, and we have this going on behind the scenes. So it's really taming that voice. That voice is basically our caregivers, our parents. It's the voice of how they maybe told us we weren't good enough, or and that's not to say that was people
And
have
maybe it
an
was how they were raised too.
exactly, and that's not to
Yeah.
say they certainly didn't mean it, that our parents
Mhm.
were unconscious to certain things. And I'm sure many people, your viewers, had great experiences childhood, but nevertheless, we all get programmed that there's no perfection where there is going to be something, even if it was a coach or a teacher that said your work isn't good enough, and all of a sudden we take on that we're not good enough, or
Yeah.
it's about the work, but we personalize it and make it that we're not good enough, and internalize it, and then we take it on ourselves. The arrows within us, so we're like our hardest critic, and that voice just stays there, and we all have that voice
It
that
voice
can
is it kind of shapes our identity, don't you think?
mm. Yeah. And one thing that really shifted a lot of my thinking was, firstly, that our thoughts, the thoughts we have all day long, aren't real. They're not necessarily true and real.
Mhm.
They're conditioned. We have we're like on a hamster wheel of thoughts, that just go and go around, like the program,
Yeah.
the machine of our mind. And that, oh wow,
Well,
I
we get
get to
on
choose.
autopilot. Yeah.
Exactly. And that you get to choose what thoughts, and this is another thing about the subconscious mind, you get to choose what you take down. Our conscious mind gets to go, no, I'll reject it. But when we're not aware, we're just letting everything go down, because our subconscious mind can't reject. It just accepts everything. It's like
Mm.
planting a seed in the garden. If you plant poison and you plant a beautiful flower, it's going to accept both. It's going to grow both. It doesn't
Mhm.
differentiate. So we get to decide, we get to filter out and discern what we take in and what we take out. What people are saying things to us all the time. Well, are you going to take that on? Like, you've got a goal or you've got a vision of some sort. Someone says, you can't do that. How could you do that? Well, you don't have the money. And then you're like, notice when you become aware, you start thinking about it pleasantly.
Yeah.
But then you can go, no, that person is coming from their paradigm, their limitation, their upbringing.
Yeah.
That's why be careful who you ask advice from and opinions from, and be careful who you talk to, with things. Of course, you talk to people and you trust them, but remembering that everybody has their own opinions and from their own childhood, from their upbringing. So
Yeah.
don't let that, interfere with your passion and your vision and what you want. Thank you, but no, thank you.
Yeah. But we really have to filter out all those opinions from other
Exactly.
people. So we're talking
Exactly.
about all these laws. What about the law of attraction? How does that come into
Yes,
play?
yes. So the law of vibration is the primary law, then the law of attraction. So how you're vibrating, at what level you're vibrating at, will attract. So as I said, your
Oh,
subconscious mind is triggering your results, which is what you're attracting. So it's like what you're seeking, what you're putting out is also seeking you. And that's where you get this attraction, action, reaction go on. So the law of attraction, and then it manifests into 3D world, into the 3D world. So we're in 4D in the, you can use your imagination. And this is where children are great attractors and manifestors, because they're in this theta brainwave, especially younger children, in that visualization and imagination. Now, the subconscious mind can't tell the difference between what's real life and what you're imagining. So imagine how many seeds you can plant into your subconscious mind that is triggering the law of attraction and manifestation. So, I think it's one of my teachers says, you can think it, if you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. If you can think it, you can have it. But remember, we have all these paradigms and these patterns that tell us you can't have what you want. You're not grateful if you want more. All this stuff going on, we've got to filter that out and not, be in fear, because fear stops us a lot of the time in our life, and then be able to create. So we're constantly, this whole process of, vibration, attraction, manifestation is going on all the time. But the problem is we're not clear about what we want. We're like, oh yeah, like you don't go to a restaurant and say, I just want some food. What will you get? Maybe not what you want.
Yeah.
You might get the whole buffet, you might get, something uncooked. You've got to put your order into the universe. You got to get very clear about what you want. And we're not necessarily taught this in childhood. We're not taught about getting clear about you want. Then the next level is starting to imagine you have it. So in the vibration piece, we need to start to be it before we see it. We need to be it. So you want to be that great parent. You got to start firstly being the best parent to yourself. You're in a child, you're a little girl or boy inside you. Then you want to start to imagine in your mind, what would the parent be like that feels great and connected to their kids? What do they think about? What do they do? How do they behave? Like, this is the whole connection, creation piece. You start to firstly become it in your mind first, because the amazing thing about this work, this creation side of the work, is that we're all trying to figure out a strategy and a tool to create and get more likes on Facebook, or but the problem with that is 95% of the time what's triggering the law of vibration, it's our mindset. 5% strategy. Until you get into the right energy and into the right mindset and into your imagination and visualizing and getting really connected emotionally, because getting connected emotionally into your heart with what you want is also what supports the laws. We're just taking action without results, getting the same of what we were getting before, and we're not,
like being on autopilot.
Yeah, we're taking action, and we're kind of like throwing darts at a board, not really knowing where it's going to land. But when you start to use your imagination, use your higher thinking, and start to get intentional and on purpose, and you already know, you've already created it, and you're already becoming it now with your thinking, your feeling, your acting. You're taking action from that space of possibly the entrepreneur you want to be, or the parent you want to be, or the partner you want to be, and you be it now. It's a very different experience. You're going to start to get different results. You're going to trigger these laws, and no matter what, it will come to manifest. Not necessarily on our time, because there is the law of gestation, which means, you plant a seed, there's a gestation period. So this is where we get frustrated, and we're like, I'm not getting the results. I can't see it. And we give up, or we blame, or we do whatever we do. And this is where we have to trust and have faith that, that something greater than us is supporting us. And it will come into gestation, not necessarily on your timeline, and not necessarily, it could be greater than what you could even imagined. Yeah.
Amazing. It's
yeah.
greater than we imagined. Wow, that's exciting. right?
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
unlimiting.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's so much to this imagination and connecting with our heart that, I think they're only just really tapping the surface. If you look at like Dr. Joe Dispenza, I don't know if you know him, the work he does and the work they do in the biology of belief, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and, really we're only really scratching the surface of how much potential we have, and we're not using our whole, our mind to its capacity. We're using logic, and we're using a lot of 3D, like, we have to see it before we believe it. And there's so much more out there that's available to us when we start to learn and understand the process and start to, be at cause. So really start to get into that imagination and that visioning. Visioning is really vital. Like, I get parents to start to imagine the parent they want to be. What does it feel like? Because that emotional piece is really important, because when you connect with your child, our children disconnect from us when we're nagging, when we're in our head. They want heart. They want to feel our heart. They want, even when they're having a tantrum or a meltdown, they want to know that they're held and we've got them. And when we react, we're coming from not only our own childhood wounding or our triggers, but we're coming from our head. We're not dropping into our heart. So a lot of the work is starting to get your heart activated again, get in touch with your heart, because if we've had trauma and challenges, if you've learnt to be, a doer in life and take action and be in your head all the time, we really, the greatest journey, longest journey is to get back to your heart.
Yeah. So I wonder, this is just a thought that I had, because I'm a parent and a grandparent.
Yeah.
And I feel like I did my best as a parent, of course, but I feel like as a grandparent, I feel much more heart-centered than, maybe it's because I'm not so worried. I know that things will work out, and it's a different feeling as a grandparent, but I feel like it's not that I didn't love with my heart with my kids, but it's hard to explain the difference. But I know other grandparents that I've talked to have kind of said that as well. It's like, it's almost like you're already there, but you couldn't do that the first time.
And you've already experienced parenting.
Yes.
I guess it takes off a lot of the responsibility. You just get to have fun with them and enjoy them, and
yes, and everything is funny. Right? We don't get upset.
And
when they get upset, the one thing I won't do is I don't laugh if the child and the parent are upset. Like, I'm very good about not laughing, but I do, I guess I'm much more accepting of, this is just normal. These things will happen.
Yeah, definitely. And you've probably had more life experiences, when we have our first child, we're like, there's no manual that comes with your child. I think the only thing I was ever told was, you won't get much sleep. That was it. That was the only advice I got, sleep before the baby comes.
It's so funny that you said that, because my mother said to me, there is no book or instruction manual for new mothers. And what I always said to my firstborn was, I need you to know that you were my rookie child. And I did the best I could, but I always led with love. And maybe I made mistakes, and not everything was, like you said, it wasn't perfect all the time, but it was always from a place of love. And I always say, you're going to make, with your first kid, you're going to make mistakes.
And look, we're learning from them. They're learning, when we make mistakes with our children and we can repair it, they learn how we communicate, how we show them that, we mess up too. But look, we can go and repair it and, say sorry, or we can go and say, you know what, because often with my children, they can have better ideas than I have. And they're actually right. Like, they might know, because often, most of the time, our children are so in tune that they will pick up our discrepancies. They will notice when we're saying one thing and doing another. Mom, you're on your phone all the time and you're telling me to get off the screen. Like they're constantly showing us where we're out of alignment.
And they are so observant.
Yes. Yes. And
right?
so it's a beautiful relationship, beautiful, they're like our awakeners. They will show us when we listen, and when we get off this high horse, as my mum probably would have said, high horse, I think, in the when we get down and we get on the level and we start to become curious. I think curiosity is so important, that we become curious as to really what's going on. Really, how am I showing up? What am I thinking about my child? Because they all impact how we react and how we respond. So yeah,
It's amazing.
mm,
Especially when we look at it that way, that
yeah,
we can learn so much from them and they have so much to offer.
exactly. And with the higher faculty of perception, that's a really big one that I use in my coaching, and that changes lives, because I think it's Dr. Wayne Dyer says, change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Change. Yes.
Really going, okay, because another law, if you look at the law of polarity, absolutely everything, something really bad also contains something really good. And I know there's horrible things that go on, and we can't explain those things. But if you look at everyday things, something, where you're feeling disconnected or something's going on with your child, there is some beautiful magic in that moment. Maybe that challenge is going to bring you closer together. And we need to use our perception, our higher faculty of perception, to start to shift. We can get very rigid in our thinking, and start to shift and pull it apart and look at it in different angle. Look at it from a different angle. Look at it through, how would someone you admire look at it through? How would Oprah look at it through? I don't know, how
Yeah.
would the Dalai Lama look at it through? Have a look at this problem, this challenge, and you will start to see it in a new way, and that will start to allow you to open up to that creativity, to your intuition, and you will come up with new ways of how to meet your child or how to attune to your child. So yeah, that perception is a really, really big skill to have, to be able to use it to in any area of your life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much of this, as I'm thinking, is sure, it's definitely applicable to the years when you're raising, minors, but I think I can see it as being very important with your significant other.
Exactly. They're all entwined, all related.
Yeah.
There's a a ripple effect. And I think, a lot of this is really kind of mind training, because you're becoming firstly, the gardener of your mind. You're pulling out the weeds, you're planting what you want to plant, and you're becoming conscious of what you're planting. And then also you're discerning, what are you going to take in? What are you going to let out? What are you going to reject? Because, you look at the news and all the current affairs, we're taking in all this fear, where we can go, no, I don't believe that, or I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to accept that. So, it's definitely becoming the minder of your mind. And that, I also support parents and people to do meditations and really get to become aware of their mind, what's going on beneath the surface of this machine.
This machine, to not be afraid to dig, right?
Exactly. And just become aware, of what's really going on. What predominantly are you thinking about during the day? Like, do you think, even when you're with your child, are you thinking they don't listen, they don't hear me, they don't love me all the time? Because we all want to feel seen, heard, and understood. And if we didn't feel like that as a child, I can guarantee you want your child to do it for you, or your partner to do it for you. So this is the responsibility piece, that we give our child their childhood. We don't try and meet our needs through them. We don't try and create this amazing child because, try and mold and contort them into something because we didn't have that, or we wanted that.
Oh yeah, I see
We
that.
allow them to have their own journey, their own mess ups. Often we, as parents, we want to come in and rescue our children. But what I like to look at it as, this time with our children when they're young and even in teens, this is the training ground for them. If we're, avoiding their pain and we're not allowing them to express it, we're doing them a disservice, because when they get out in the world, they won't know how to cope with challenges. They won't know how to This is the time where we need to go, wow, every challenge, every moment with my child is an important moment. I can show up and be present to what's going on. And it's becoming really intentional in your parenting to go, okay, it's game on. Children have come home from school, phone away. Let's see where they're at. And it's not to say we're constantly in their face all the time. Like, as teenagers, they want to have a bit of space, but we're tuning to them. We're coming from a different energy instead of like a needy energy. We need them to do, we need to be filled up. We're filling ourselves up first. We're looking after ourselves. And this is the work of the reparenting our inner child, where we start to meet our own needs first. So our child doesn't need to do anything, say anything. They don't need to love us. They don't need to, sure, lovely. We want them to love us. We want them to be kind to us. We'll hold boundaries if they're not, but we're not in a needy relationship. And that's a codependent relationship, which we call it a meshment, where there's this dynamic going on. We want to set them free. And a lot of this work is setting people
We're
around
not going to
free.
burden them, right, with the responsibility of having to, I get that. At first I wasn't following you, but now I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to set them free, their life, their journey, and we just take our responsibility back, and we start to parent ourselves, and a lot of that, because if we didn't have a parent that was really available or really connected, we're going to feel possibly disconnected to our child, because that we didn't learn how to connect. We didn't learn how to attune to our needs, and we didn't get shown how to meet ourselves first. And that's important as a parent. And it's all part of the work. It's ongoing process, but we become more aware, and it's magical, really. The parents transform their relationships with their children and themselves. Yeah.
And I think when kids go through the teenage years, which can be one of the things I always said to my kids, especially as they were getting to the end of their teenage years, and maybe they had some issues with other teenagers, I would say, you know what, do not hold someone responsible for the thoughts and actions they took when they were teenagers, because it's a hard time for, you can weigh in on this if you think, but I always say to them, forgive people for what they did when they were teenagers, because they were really trying on all sorts of different personalities, if you may. And I think a lot of times when they come back, and you may see someone who is no longer a teenager anymore, and you see them as a responsible adult, it's a beautiful thing,
Yeah. I think, look, children really, I believe, really want to do well. They want to do well. But, with teenagers and behavior, beneath the behavior, it's the tip of the iceberg. Beneath that behavior, there's a need they're trying to meet.
Yeah.
And so if you look at any scenario, they're trying to meet some need. And when we look at it in that way, it's not like they're doing things on purpose, or they're trying to annoy us or ruin our lives. There is an actual need. And as parents, we need to get curious and start to understand them and connect and think about, what are they actually what are they needing? What need are they trying to meet? Yeah. And they can meet, they're going to try and meet them in dysfunctional ways. And we're there to show them how they can meet it in a healthier way. And it's all training ground. It's a training ground, teenage years, younger years, for ourselves, for the parents, and for the child. And it's just getting really connected to what's going on, and being in the moment. This is the mindfulness piece, the being present in the moment, not projecting onto the future, and worrying about what might happen when they're adult, which we often do as parents, and we have worst case scenarios. It's going, what is
and
now?
We feel responsible, right?
Exactly. What is it that I can do now? What is in a lot of the work that I do also is the spiritual, I guess, law, whereas it's called accepting the as is. So accepting the as is, it is what it is right now. And it's coming from that place of acceptance that we can then meet our child, that we can then meet the challenge. Because if we're resisting, and I do a lot of work with resistance, not only in my own life with my children, but when we're resisting something, we're going to meet that challenge with more resistance, and it's going to be messy. It's going to be a mess. If we meet our child with more resistance and they're already resisting, I can guarantee you, you'll be disconnected from them, and there'll be a mess to clean up in the end. You know, the parent will yell, the child will rebel. And then, so it's working on your own, you know, inner terrain and coming to the moment in a neutral way. And it's hard because we get triggered, we get reactive. But the more you practice it, the more you can come to a scenario or a life situation or a moment with your child with neutrality and not charged with a trigger or anything, the more you're going to be able to not only support them, but the more you're going to be able to create something new and not necessarily go down, you know, to a big mess that needs to be cleaned up.
So that right there sounds like breaking a generational pattern. You know, meeting them, you may have been brought up with a certain pattern and you're trying to meet them without judgment, with neutrality.
Exactly. Yeah. Because if you grew up with a parent that was yelling and reactive all the time, I mean, you could go two ways. You either went under, you complied and you went under and you were the good girl or the good boy, or you rebelled. So, you know, depending on what kind of child you have. But then, you know, in saying that, I do also work around emotions, meeting your emotions, like, so that children can express their emotions in healthy ways. But in order for your child to do that, you need to be able to do that, because it's very hard to hold space and it's uncomfortable. And I've been there when you can't meet yourself and your child is having big emotions and you just want them to stop crying and you want to fix it. You want to change it. And it's allowing that container for them to fall apart and you hold them together. You've got that safe container around them. And that is another part of the work that we need to meet our own emotions, that they're like visitors. They come, they go like waves. They arrive, they go. Yeah. And often we have judgments about feelings that we have, and then they stay. We need to allow them to just roll through, that we don't define ourselves by them, that's not who we really are, who truly are. And exact same as the thoughts are not who we truly are. They're conditioned thoughts. So that's becoming aware, and the meditation really helps you become the observer of your life and your thoughts and the processes, instead of being the reactor. It gives you that space between it. And when you can see the program, then you're not the program. So
yeah, that's fascinating. And you have speaking of programs, you have is it 2 complimentary programs on your website? Here goes my laryngitis.
Yeah, so I have a 12 days of presence program, which you just get one email and it's broken down into 12 days. And it's, you know, a short paragraph to read, to get you, you know, read it in the morning, to get you in the energy of how am I going to be more present today, to myself, to my children, to whatever's going on. And gives you exercises to do, nothing too complicated, very simple. You can and focus. Another universal law is the law of order. When our mind isn't in order, we're all chaotic. Our energy is all dispersed. So when we focus, we get our energy really potent and really focused. So it gives you a focal point to go, okay, this is one thing I'm going to do today. And then I have another PDF on sleep, the truths about sleep, because my son was, my first child was a challenge sleeper. So I learned a lot about, you know, presence and patience, and also a lot what supported me, because I was very much at the beginning in my head, and you know, what's wrong, trying to fix. And a lot of this work isn't about fixing, changing, improving. It's actually starting to create, not problem solve.
Oh, it's really?
Yeah. So a lot of parents will come and they'll go, my child is this, they want to fix their child and change this and that. And when I tell them that the work is for you to do, that you're shifting, you're doing stuff, the inner work, then I guarantee you the dynamic's going to change. Your work's going to change. Things, and this is another law where, the law of the cause and effect, that once you change, other things change. It's just natural.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing. So I will put your website in the show notes.
Great.
So that if people would like to look a little bit more at your programs, they can find them. And this has been so fascinating. So many thoughts have gone through my head. I feel like this could spawn into like 3 more episodes. It's just,
yeah, we've touched on lots actually.
we really have. It's so fascinating. And here I thought we were going to talk about things like potty training. And I'm like, I don't really know. I don't really know if this is what we want, but this is so much more. And I feel like we're always children, as you talked about parenting your inner child, and we can always grow and learn.
Exactly. Yeah. We have little children inside of us that, we didn't even tap on this about the ego and the inner child, because the inner child, when we get triggered, it's the inner child that's shaking the cage. The ego, which is our like false self, is around the inner child. And that's the one that would like either beats us down or builds us up, or it tries to put a barrier between us. Like, someone does something not so nice to us and we're like, I'm going to unfriend them, or I'm not going to, So there's a whole dynamic, a whole world going on inside of us that once we become aware of actually what's going on, then we can start to shift our energy and go towards what we want to create. Otherwise, we're really at default to our programming.
Fascinating. Man, I want to thank you so much for being on today. This conversation has truly inspired me. I hope it has inspired our audience, Nina. So thank you very much. And folks, I will put Nina's information in the show notes so that you can, should I just put your website in and that's where people can go?
Yeah. I think, and then I've got my Instagram, my Facebook page.
Okay. Yeah. Let me know what those are and I'll pop them up there too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Judy. It was great to chat.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. In one way, it's kind of scary to think that there's a whole world going on inside of us. But it's also very exciting because once we become aware of it, we can start to shift our energy and go towards what we actually really want to create. Wow, this has definitely been an eye-opener. And of course, it was nothing about potty training or the ABCs. It was really more about ourselves and how we can actually become aware of what's going on. So listen, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Nina for joining us today and opening our eyes to a whole new world. If you like this episode, of course, please do us a favor and leave a review, grab a screenshot, and share it on social media. You can find all the information you want about Nina Cruz in the show notes. And as always, thank you very much. I'm always grateful for you to lend an ear. And if you have a story that you would like to be told, or you know someone who has one and you think it would make a great learning experience for our audience, please reach out to me and we can do our best to get that person on as a guest as well. So we will see you next week on the Air Hug Community Podcast.